listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord!
Praise God!
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William. Join me, Daily Derek.
I can eat a peach for hours.
And today we'll be discussing Face Off, which is Face Off, the 1997 movie directed by John Woo that has Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, and other people in it. But before we get to discussing that, we'll briefly...
Tom Jane's in it.
Oh, yeah, Tom Jane is in it. Yeah, because I was like, his
Tom
voice
Jane.
is similar, but it's like, oh, it's Tom Jane with long hair and glasses.
Yeah.
And he's not playing like the Punisher or like a badass dude. He's just like, oh, I'm a prisoner.
Yeah.
So there's a number of familiar faces that show up in that movie. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But before that, we'll briefly touch on some things we've been watching. And also, too, like news-wise. So today is July 15th that we're recording this. And the Joe Bob Briggs 24-hour live stream that was on Shudder just happened. I didn't have a chance to watch it.
Didn't it like, kind of like break the site at some point?
Well, I think their service just wasn't ready for the stress of a live stream being watched by as many people as we're trying to watch.
2,000 people and it broke their server. I don't
And
know
I think that like it was initially supposed to be just a 24-hour streaming only event where you couldn't catch it again, just like a TV show. It's on once, and but I'm sure that people captured it and will. And I think they even, since they had so many issues with the stream, I think it will be available to watch at some point.
Yeah, to me, it'd be something they should probably like break down into sections and put it on their thing eventually. Because it seemed like it, just from being on Twitter and being, following a bunch of stuff in the horror community and stuff, it seemed like it was a really big deal. And even on Facebook and Instagram, I saw stuff about it.
Yeah, because Joe Bob Briggs was a big part of a lot of people's youths and childhoods. Because like the TNT Monster Vision, I remember watching that back in the day, where he would, had like the set where he's in front of like the camper or RV or whatever, and sitting out talking. He did like those interviews. Because I remember, I think it was recently, Sean shared like in our group chat, like the interview with, or maybe it was on Instagram, the one of him and Gary Busey, where Gary Busey's just kind of unhinged, and which seems to be kind of par for the course with him in recent years. But that Joe Bob Briggs is a big part of a lot of people's childhoods because he talked about these movies and brought things to people's attention, and it was commentary and did reviews and things. So then he kind of came back and did this one-time streaming event, and like hopefully that'll be something that'll be available to watch it later at some point. I know it wasn't supposed to be, but they had so many issues where people couldn't watch it that a lot of people would be very disappointed if they don't get to kind of see what he does. Because he did talk about a lot of movies. I think they like Sleepaway Camp and Pieces and a bunch of other stuff on there throughout. That would be interesting to go back. I definitely want to see it. It's just I was busy and kind of forgot that it was going on.
Well, I think for them, just seeing how big of a buzz it created, if you're trying to get viewership in and stuff, it seemed like it'd almost be a good idea to like, don't put the entire thing in a 24-hour block, but have it broke down to sections. That way you can watch all of it. And it seems like to me that would be something that would work pretty well and get people interested.
Yeah, so that was something. And Joe Bob Briggs has a small role in the movie Face Off. Because I was watching it and I was like, oh man, there's Joe Bob.
Which character is he?
He was, I'm trying to remember what part it was. Because he was in there. Let me look. Let's see. He was one of the executioner guys.
Oh, okay.
Or an executioner guy. So he was in there, and I was like, oh, that's Joe Bob. Because I remember he was on some podcast at some point and discussed like his small cameos in some different movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was going on. So I didn't have a chance to watch. I know Sean watched some of it, and then Corey, who used to be on the site, he was watching it and talking about it. Yeah. So it is kind of cool when you see these kind of communal experiences where everybody's talking about the same thing. Because that doesn't really exist as much anymore. Because with streaming, something's put on Netflix on Friday at midnight at 12 a.m. and then everybody just watches it at their own leisure over the course of the next week.
The only thing that Netflix has ever done like kind of like that was there was a April Fool's Day prank they had, Will Arnett.
Yeah.
Where he was just narrating on very mundane stuff, like around the Netflix office. Yeah. It was only on there for one day, and then they took it down.
Well, didn't they have another one? It wasn't Netflix. It was Amazon Prime, where Will Ferrell and somebody else, I think the the Thanksgiving Day parade.
It was Molly Shannon and Will Ferrell.
Molly Shannon and Will Ferrell did like commentary of it, but it was a joke.
But people thought it was real, and they got mad at him because they did not realize it was Molly Shannon and Will Ferrell.
Yeah, they didn't realize it was a joke.
And then they ended up commentating the royal wedding too.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time people watched it and thought it was gonna be like a serious thing, and it was the Rose Bowl parade or something they had done.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Thanksgiving thing.
Okay.
But people thought it was real, and they got like upset about it because I went through. I remember reading the comments. There's a bunch of white ladies like, "This is so disrespectful," and it's like,
Yeah.
what did you think? It's Will Ferrell and Molly Shannon. They're not gonna. It's Funny or Die that presented it, and it's just like even in there, I think it said Funny and Die presents, and it's like,
there's been people who have shared articles from the Onion and not realized that it was satirical.
well, now it's hard to tell when the Onion article gets released if it actually is satirical or true.
Because current public figures, and I won't disclose which specific ones,
they're just world events.
You
It's just
see
like,
quotes from people, and you're like, that has to be a joke. When someone says they're better than Elton John because he needs an entire band to get people's attention, but this person can get everyone's attention with just their voice and get the same amount of applause, like that's weird commentary.
That's like Illusions of Grandeur.
Yeah. So, but Joe Bob Briggs came back, which is awesome. We'll see if that's something that's available to be watched anywhere, because I'm assuming it will be at some point. Even though it's supposed to be like a streaming only event, the fact they had so many issues with the stream that people just couldn't watch it. Like I said, he was in Face Off. I saw the other day some news. There was a 3 from Hell teaser that was on the Rob Zombie Marilyn Manson tour that they showed.
Oh my God.
And it's literally just footage from the original movie with like titles, so no real footage. It just says coming 2019.
No real footy. Just we were kind of talking about the Marilyn Manson Rob Zombie tour, and not to offend anybody that's fans of them, because while I do like some of their discography, I don't love all of it. I like certain stuff out of it.
Yeah.
It's like, what more of a 1998 event? The only thing that could be more 90s than them going on tour together would be like Limp Bizkit and Korn, or
well, no,
Tool
like
and Korn,
if it's Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson with Korn opening,
and like Tool's got to be there somewhere too. You know.
But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff like that.
I think Rob Zombie seems more prevalent in the current day than Marilyn Manson, because I don't know if he's really released anything of note, and maybe I'm wrong. I
think Rob Zombie stayed more in the public eye because of the movies.
Because of the movies and social media presence.
Because I think a lot of times with people that like different bands and stuff, I think bands that are kind of past their heyday in terms of the height of their popularity, they still have their fans who listen to all their material, but it kind of stays within the spheres of those social groups, and doesn't really penetrate to the mainstream.
I always kind of feel like Marilyn Manson is like the Walmart version of Alice Cooper. And I say that because like I know their music is completely different, but they both are kind of the weird, you know what I'm saying?
So I felt like he was Marilyn Manson was kind of the X Games version of Alice Cooper. It's like, well, look at that, but look how extreme I am.
Yeah.
And his music from years ago,
he had good stuff.
There was stuff. There was like music. I mean, a lot of it's been used in movies and stuff like that. So it has lasted over time.
Yeah.
It's just his shtick was never one I was necessarily a fan of, so I haven't really kept up with any of that. But it seems like with this movie 3 from Hell, there's like news trickling out every single week that's non-news. They're like, oh, Diamond Dallas Page isn't in it, but like nobody said he was, so that's not really news. So like we'll have to wait and see. But also Neil Blomkamp, who directed District 9 and Chappie and Elysium, is going to be directing a Robocop sequel. Which
is a direct sequel to the original, so it's kind of acting like the second Robocop never happened.
So it's kind of doing the Halloween thing of ignoring sequels. And so it's going to be a sequel to the original Robocop. I don't know if anybody's from the original is coming back.
They got to get everybody from the original.
Because I've seen people from the original and other things, and it's been fine. Because
Red from That 70 Show can make an appearance. They've sewed him back together. He's fine now.
Because it's Peter Weller.
It's the feature.
Peter Weller was in Dexter, I think, for a season or something.
Yeah.
But he's somebody that, the Robocop is literally just his face. Yeah. So I'm sure that he could probably portray that and be fine. I'm not sure if they're going to do that same.
No, they'll probably recast, but I think you definitely need to get some cameos. If they do not have, I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah.
In the remake, don't even make it.
Well, it's one of those things where Neil Blomkamp didn't get to do a sequel, ignoring the prior sequels to an 80s franchise he loved, which is Alien. Aliens.
He would have anything that's told us that he probably would have made a better one.
Well, I do know that. Okay, so Alien was in the late 70s,
No,
but Aliens was in the 80s.
But like what we got with the
Alien 3,
no, not Alien 3, the prequels.
Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
But then there's also they're going to make a comic series of one of the unproduced scripts for Alien 3 that more heavily featured Hicks and Bishop.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited to see. It's just with Alien 3, we did the episode about it, but that movie causes a lot of fanboy regret. But that's also the difference in the internet.
Yeah.
Because when Alien 3 came out in the 90s, and people walked out and were like, man, that's really not what I wanted at all. That was the exact opposite of what I wanted. There wasn't the internet really for people to, stand on their soapbox and scream out into the ether about how they hated it and not my Alien and redo it and remake it. So people just kind of like, well, it wasn't what I wanted, but I guess it's what exists, so I'll just either forget about it or whatever. As opposed to now, people don't like Star Wars. They create fan campaigns to remake it and to get it stricken from canon.
We only want $200 million to remake it with nobody that is involved. Okay,
we are going to get the dime store version of Mark Hamill. I'm not sure who that is, but yeah. So there's stuff like that. There's been news off and on.
I mean, the dinosaur version, like that is him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's like the new stuff. So things we've been watching.
Well, I mean, actually, a little bit of news was who they just covering some of the Venom news. I think they officially announced it's going to be rated R. And they released a little more screen footage of him.
Or images.
Which
it looks good.
Yeah, it looks, when you first saw it, it was kind of like, yeah, but the one they released, because, the good thing about these movies now is that you said, specifically talking about, like, people voicing their opinions on the internet, and when a movie's not released yet, and they weren't happy with the way Venom looked in the trailer, the first one where you actually saw it.
Yeah.
But the new image is very more comic book accurate looking. So I wonder if they're going to fix that in the rest of the film and see if they can make people. I don't know how I feel about this movie. I still don't.
It feels like a weird sideways approach to the material because a lot of these movies have embraced the comic book nature of their source material.
Yeah.
And in all these movies now they're embracing like space stuff and aliens and all that type of thing. So in the original comics, Venom was an alien symbiote that came from a different planet. And that's how it originated.
Yeah, it was attached
seems,
to Peter Parker
it
first.
seems like they're doing more of a scientist experiment type approach.
Almost, like Sean talked about before, like it almost feels like it's something from the 2000s, like the early 2000s.
When people were ashamed to make comic book properties about the comics.
Which I think the thing is going to be interesting is because Sony actually is the one that owns the rights to Spider-Man. So are they going to have... I don't think Tom Holland's going to be in the movie. But I think you at least have to make some type of connection because if not, it makes zero sense.
Well, and two, so you have that. And then there's also the news that the Spawn movie, in addition to having Jamie Foxx as Spawn, we have Jeremy Renner is one of the detectives. So that's kind of a big get. They're getting kind of a star-studded cast.
Because the way that it sounds is like, I don't know much about the Spawn comics, especially now. But like he's gonna be the detective Twitch, which from what I've understood from like following Sean McFarlane on different stuff.
Todd McFarlane.
Sorry, Todd McFarlane. He'll probably find out and like yell at us. Not that he listens to our podcast, but what I'm saying is like Jeremy Renner will probably be the lead. For everything I've heard is like it centers around Twitch following stuff that Spawn has done.
Well, if you watched the Spawn animated series from HBO, same in Twitch, the detectives and the comics, they're the detectives.
Yeah, so you know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, because I read the comics when I was younger, and I watched the animated series on HBO, which ended on kind of like a cliffhanger because I only think got 3 seasons. They had plans for more and didn't get brought back. But yeah, they're just detectives that kind of look into all of the things that Spawn unearths or gets involved with. And Twitch is like really smart and actually puts together what's going on.
Yeah.
And figures out like, so I think that it's more of just, the detectives are kind of seeing Spawn's the boogeyman that's kind of off in the shadows. And maybe it's how they got Jamie Foxx. They're like, well, we only need you to shoot for like 2 days of voiceover work. And you don't really need to be on set much. So
I don't know, because the way that the announcement was when McFarlane announced it, I think Jimmy Foxx is going to play a pretty integral role as Spawn, because I think you had to have Spawn in it. But I just think it's really interesting to have Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner
in this kind of low budget superhero adaptation.
Yeah, and it's going to probably be like
R-rated.
Yeah, so I think to me that intrigues me, and then having them two is going to get you also other big names involved
because
too.
Todd McFarlane's going to be the first time director on it. I mean, he's been involved with other adaptations.
Which, think about it, for him to be a first time director to get Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner is like.
But you would think too, like first time director getting actors that have a lot of experience with big time movies. Yeah, an Oscar winner, and then Jeremy Renner's been in these Avenger movies and all that stuff. So having these people that have this all this experience will hopefully help him get a little bit better product out. But so that is a project I'm very interested in, just to see how a kind of low-ish budget approach to material like that works.
Blumhouse has got to be like extremely happy to have both of them attached to it,
because then that probably opens the door for them to show up in something else they've done.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of times the Blumhouse movies have pretty low budgets, but the big stars get offered back end points on the movie, and when they do very well, they get good money.
If you told me when this, because remember this has been discussed for years. But now to know that it's not made till it's all made and done. But
until it's released.
Yeah, until it's released. But at this point, to have these guys attached, which their names are going to draw other big actors, it'd be really interesting. This is something that I actually am very interested in now, because it's something that at first I was kind of like, whatever. But you gave me Jamie Foxx, you got Jeremy Renner in it, you got Blumhouse involved. So far, you've hit everything out of the park.
Yeah,
so because Blumhouse, even if they have a bad movie, it's still good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a great movie, but like they don't usually have movies that are complete misses. Yeah. They usually, you're talking, if you got a movie at $20 million, that movie's gonna make its money back.
Yeah, but so that's kind of recent news in terms of things we've been watching. So I did get to see the First Purge. The timing didn't work out for us to discuss
not
it.
The original Purge, but the movie.
The movie called The First Purge that was released this year. I didn't get a chance, because of the timing of the prior podcast, I didn't get a chance to get anything out about it before the 4th of July. But I did see it before the day after the 4th of July. I saw it on the Thursday, the 5th. But it's, if you've enjoyed the prior Purge movies, it's not as much of so the first movie is essentially just, a family in their own home, trapped, characters making some of the dumbest decisions in the world, and just kind of a home invasion movie. Yeah. The second one opened it up, and Frank Grillo is kind of like the Punisher. Yeah, it's essentially like
the Punisher movie that people had wanted for a long time and they hadn't gotten, and then this movie able to.
So it's like, skilled dude that can kill people going in the Purge for like a revenge mission. The Purge election year was almost kind of like an Escape from New York type high concept. Like during the Purge, people are trying to kill a politician that might be against it.
And again, Frank
Grillo is, because of his heroics, he's, a security person because he saw the flaws in the Purge and how bad it was, and he's somebody that is trying to protect this politician. So you have this kind of cool, almost Escape from New York or Warriors-ish type movie.
Yeah, I really like that one because it did feel kind of like a good mix of like the Warriors and Escape from New York. It felt very like exploitive, like 70s.
It feels
80s.
Like it would have been from the 80s.
Yeah, even the second one.
It feels, Walter Hill could have made this in the 80s or something after the Warriors, but then. The new one, the First Purge, is set during the first trial run of the Purge, so the first time they tried it, and it's not the entire country, it's just in Staten Island in New York, and they are doing like a test run of it to see if it works well enough to then roll out across the rest of the country. So that's kind of the backdrop of it, and the idea is just that, what became more explicit as the Purge movies went on, because the first one, there was some class, warfare type comments throughout, but it wasn't really focused on that. It was only in like the Purge election year and the second Purge that it became more about like, people are using the Purge to probably get rid of the poor people so they're not a strain on public resources and taking up money and blah, blah, blah. So the First Purge is how like they're trying to engineer it to do that. And so that's drawn a lot of criticism or discussion around like its racial political points. So to me, it kind of tried to straddle the line between political statement and exploitation film. Yeah. And it feels like it tilts a little bit more towards exploitation film with these other elements in there is more like blatant commentary of like a character saying something versus showing it happening. So I thought it was...
it kind of what it sounds like is it almost failed at both ends. Or it wasn't really necessarily didn't achieve anything. Like it tried. Maybe was it doing too much of both and it just didn't really.
Like the Purge election year, I really liked because it had the kind of overt political commentary, but it had the more exploitation style moments. Yeah, and the new one, still had those types of moments. I still enjoyed it, and it's still a movie. Like if you like the other Purge movies, you'll probably find something to enjoy in it, unless you just. Unless you find the idea of a Purge appealing and thought maybe they might be on. So I was talking to Julia, I was like, a lot of times what happens is like couples in relationships or, guy and girl, guy, whatever, they hear about some like sex thing that kind of intrigues them in a movie or a show or in general conversation. So they kind of like hint about it to their partner and kind of like tiptoe around. It's like, well, what about this thing? And then like it's just kind of this uneasy conversation. There's probably some people who are politicians like, yeah, this Purge movie where they just decide that crime is legal for 24 hours. That's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could do that. I'm just joking. No, I'm not. Are you serious? Do you want to do this? So I feel like some people who have that viewpoint would hate this movie because it paints them as the bad guy.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of an overt thing about, you know, wealthy ideological people wanting to suppress the poor and get rid of them because they see them as like a big issue. So it has those like very overt messages. I just feel like the exploitation stuff wasn't enough. Like you didn't get enough cool action. It was still enjoyable. Just to me, like the election year was kind of like the high water mark for the series.
Yeah.
And this one just feels like trying to say a lot, but it just should have went more in either direction instead of kind of straddling the line.
Yeah.
Still enjoyable enough if you enjoyed the prior ones. It's not any worse than the first one, in my opinion.
Yeah, the first one, how they got a sequel out of the first one, I guess because it
just made a lot of money.
Probably did pretty well financially, but was not a good movie.
So I still enjoyed it. It wasn't, to me, like a huge knockout, but it is a franchise where it'd be interesting to see because they have the TV series coming out. It's like a 10-episode event on USA. So where that goes, it will be interesting. I just don't know how much more you can get out of this franchise.
Yeah, I think especially too, which I'm kind of glad they didn't bring Frank Grillo back into it because I liked where his character was at and what they did with him.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad this one wasn't really a continuation of that story, which I think really kind of concluded itself at the end of, because I don't really know what else you could have done with him.
Yeah.
You put him in the same situation for was this Death Wish 7? Like you can't continue to put the same guy in the same situation.
It seems like after the last Purge movies, like if they were to continue the franchise forward after election year, it would not be as action heavy. It'd be more political type stuff. So it's a franchise that has legs, and or, at least it has so far. And they have this TV series and stuff. So I guess there could be stories to tell within that universe. I just don't know how much you can do when you kind of have an end point mapped out, and a beginning point mapped out, and midpoints throughout. Like, I'm not sure what all else you can tell.
The only thing you can really do is prequels at this point. Or, I mean, I guess technically it can always fall through and, you know, the Purge can still continue. But it's like you said, it's kind of a weird, it's kind of like what Fast and Furious did at a certain point where they had themselves like that. And they obviously.
Because what is it? Fast and Furious 4, 5, and 6 were actually prequels to Part 3.
Yes.
So it wasn't until Fast and Furious 7 they actually got to being past Fast and Furious 3. So there's like weird time stuff like that. Because I think the first Purge is supposed to take place in like 2017.
Yeah.
But there's a few things in it. It's like, well, they're just probably doing little Easter eggs, but time-wise, you just created a time paradox.
Yeah.
But
something else we forgot about news is that they have officially kind of announced a new Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, they have.
And I know that's relevant because, you know, we've talked about Mortal Kombat 4 on the podcast.
Paul W. Anderson movies.
Yeah.
Event Horizon last week.
But the thing that's interesting is, like, they released the casting call.
Yeah.
And 2 roles that were not in the casting call, Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So the thing that's interesting about that is either one, they maybe haven't casted for those roles yet, or they're going to skip it altogether.
Or they'll do full CG and just get voiceover later.
Yeah, and then Raiden, however you want to say his name, is they're looking for a teenager to do his role instead of an adult. So I see that and I'm like, you know, to me, is this going to, because you can do a rated R movie with younger people in it. Logan showed us that.
Yeah.
But and other movies have to, not just Logan. But it just, to me, is like, I think if they do another PG-13 Mortal Kombat movie, then they're not really bringing anything else to the table.
I mean, I don't get the point of rebooting the franchise in that type of way.
I don't either. To me, it would have made more sense. Like, if you want to do a Mortal Kombat movie, I honestly think to make it appeal to the general masses, you know, go with a Scorpion or Sub-Zero heavy movie, give people what they actually want, and make it rated R. And then, you know, because, again, like, as a Mortal Kombat fan, I don't want to see another movie about Liu Kang. And it looks like this movie is centered around going to be like an ex-boxer that somehow gets involved into it. And it's like a character that is not in any of the games.
Yeah.
And it's like, that to me feels so 1990s that it's like, why do that?
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Mortal Kombat is something to me. It's like a franchise that has nostalgic value. But to me, that almost makes more sense as like a series or something, just because the movie that was made didn't really give a lot of the fans of the game what they wanted. It was still like goofy-ish fun that could be enjoyed. But I'm not really sure what tone you strike with the new one, because they only made like those shorts online or stuff. But
but to me, it's like doing a Mortal Kombat movie and you not putting the 2 most iconic characters that are in the franchise.
The characters that are on the box art for most of them.
And like I said, you know, there is a possibility they may have already been casted or they haven't casted for them yet, or they want to keep whoever it is under wraps. But if you do that movie without them in it, or if you do it again where they're like kind of have a disservice, yeah, it's like, what's the point?
So, did you watch anything before you get into Face Off?
Yeah, I watched Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Saw that last week when it came out. It was really good. It's not as much, kind of a lot of the stuff, like people say it's a palate cleanser from Infinity War. That's not a spoiler alert. That's been in all the reviews out there.
It's just kind of like a fun little jaunt.
Yeah, and it's set between, like, the events of it are...
After Civil War and before Infinity War?
Well, it's like, really, the way it's set up is it's 2 years after Civil War, so it leads up into Infinity War. Again, not a spoiler. It's been in the trailers.
Well, there's no way it could, like...
There's no way this movie's going to end it and not have a connection to Infinity War. It couldn't have...
Without addressing... Yeah, like, if the movie was after Infinity War, they would have had to address it immediately in the movie.
Which is the first Marvel movie in their 10 years and, almost 20 movies where they actually had a female lead character in the film. Or co-lead in the film.
Well, I mean...
It only took them 10 years to do it.
In Guardians of the Galaxy, you could argue, like, Gamora was a co-lead.
Yeah, but I'm saying as far as having in a title, this is the first one in 10... Scarlett Johansson's been involved in it for 8 years, and... They finally announced her movie.
She's getting a movie.
Which only took them 8 years to do it. I don't understand that,
but they'll have Captain Marvel, then Black Widow. And
so it kind of loses its impact to me at that point because the one female superhero you've had for the longest is the last one to get her movie, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's the big shortfall. But, I mean, I thought it was a really well-done movie. It is kind of... It's more of like a comedy, an action comedy.
Yeah.
But Paul Rudd and... what's her name? Eva.
Evangeline Lilly.
I can't even say
Evangeline Lilly.
Evangeline Lilly. Like, she's great in it, and all the action in it. Like, because it's one thing that I would like to have seen her like in more of the Avenger films, because like the way that her character is set up, like she actually knows how to fight. She's a much better fighter than Ant-Man.
Yeah.
So all of her like fight scenes and stuff are just awesome. It's something that you want to see more in that universe, which they're going to. Just I don't see how they would not do it. But I really enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite MCU movie. Like I said, it's not a hard
take.
It's not a hard hitting movie. It's more like a Thor Ragnarok. But I think that makes it a lot more enjoyable and rewatchable. I don't think it's going to be in the top 5, 10 as far as domestic grosses or world gross wise. But.
It's just they have like a wide stable now of different types of things that you can watch, like movies that cover different types of subject matter and different tone. Because you have some that are very downbeat and dour. I mean, but they all have fun though. Even the ones that are kind of more downbeat still have fun elements and provoke laughter from the audience and things like that.
Well, even like Infinity Wars, as dark
more
as that
serious
movie was, like there still was a ton of comedy in it, and it was mostly with the Guardians of the Galaxy. But
and Thor,
yeah, I mean, like, but he was mainly involved.
But they basically made that character Thor from being one of the more boring elements of the MCU to being a very fun character.
Probably one of the best of the MCU.
And it was kind of just having Taika Waititi kind of turn the character around. I mean, the Avengers kind of did that. The first one made him more less of like a straight faced wannabe Shakespearean Power Rangers type character to be. Kind of like I'm the god of thunder. That's kind of goofy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it works. So it'd just be interesting to me now to like, because the next movie the MCU releases before Infinity War Part 2 is going to be
Captain Marvel.
So
and that's set in like the 90s.
Yeah, and again, that movie at the end is going to go directly into that. So it'd just be really interesting how they set up, because you have all this build up for Infinity War Part 2. The MCU knows what they're doing. By the end of the year, they will probably have grossed just this year alone $4 billion plus.
Yeah, because Black Panther, Infinity War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp,
and Ant-Man and the Wasp. So they know what they're doing. They keep putting them out.
Make a lot of money.
The other thing I watch is Glow season 2. I can't remember if I talked that in the last podcast or not. It's just gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Yeah,
it's about like an '80s show they made.
Has like Allison Brie as the lead.
Allison Brie, and it's very good. Probably one of my favorite shows on Netflix, if not one of my favorites. BoJack Horseman's still my favorite. But I highly recommend it, especially if you're into the '80s or just wrestling, because there is actually a lot of wrestling stuff in it, which makes it enjoyable and kind of makes you want to go check out like local wrestling shows, but the quality's not going to be there like in that.
Yeah,
but it is very fun, and it's one of those shows where it's like. Also, if you're interested in the show, check out the Glow documentary that's actually about the real women of it that's on there too. I would recommend watching that first before you watch any of it, just to kind of give you a good mindset of it. I can't really think there's anything else I've watched because I've been kind of busy lately. I also watched Nailed It, which is on Netflix, which is like, have you seen that?
No.
It's, like you always see memes of like somebody trying to bake a dog cake and then it looks really good in the picture and then they show their real version. It looks like a turd.
Yeah.
Like it's that they take mediocre people at baking and give them really hard challenges. So if you're in like cooking shows and stuff, it's on Netflix. It's really
like
good.
Somebody
Check it
watches
out.
a BuzzFeed how to make this cake. It's like a unicorn video. They make one that looks like two blobs.
And they actually did a unicorn cake. And so check it out. It's really good. It's fun. It's 2 seasons of it on there. But that's pretty much all I've watched besides, Face
all right,
Off.
so now we'll get into discussing Face Off, the
epic.
1997 movie starring John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. It was it's a 2 hour and 18-minute long movie,
Which is insane to think.
It's a rated R. So this movie, so we'll do full spoilers throughout. Just
it's been out for so long.
It's been out for so long. It's on Netflix now. You can watch it there, a bunch of different places. Or if you're like us, you had a dad that rented it and you watched it like 30 times when it came out in the 90s.
How old does it make you feel knowing this movie is old enough to drink now?
Yeah, the movie, and then like you see movies like this, and in these movies, like they have, John Travolta's character Sean Archer has a daughter, and then you look at like the IMDb stuff, and she was born in 1980, so she would be 5 years older than I am. But you watch this movie and you're like, oh, it's like a teenager, and it's like, oh no, they're a full grown adult now, like they're old enough to have like their own teenager.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting seeing movies like that. But, this was directed by John Woo. So John Woo at that point, because, it's interesting is I think the movie at some point had been in development for a while. At one point, they had wanted Schwarzenegger and Stallone for it, which would be a completely different type of movie. I guess because they're just both muscular, so they would have had to get bigger or smaller, or just ignore it like they did in this movie. And be like,
in this movie they covered.
They did talk about like getting rid of the love handles and other stuff.
Yeah, so they did cover that. They're like, we're going to do
when you look at John Woo's career, so in '96 he had Broken Arrow with Christian Slater and John Travolta. Then he did Face Off in '97 with Travolta and Cage. And then he did Mission Impossible 2 in 2000 with Tom Cruise. And that's the one where they jump off the motorcycles and collide midair.
Yeah.
And then they have this, like all of John Woo's movies have like the slow motion scenes, the doves flying. So all these like stylistic staples of John Woo are in Face Off.
Yeah.
And you were saying before he started this is a movie that would never get made today. High concept, R-rated action film over 2 hours long that has like leads in it that are, stars.
These are like, this was after the John Travolta Renaissance that happened with,
it was after Pulp Fiction. He was in Broken Arrow.
This is like Nicolas Cage's height because he just came off The Rock, Con Air.
Yeah.
You got this. This is like Nicolas Cage. He's already won his Oscar, right? So he's at the top of his career. John Travolta has revitalized his. They're at this point huge stars.
Yeah.
This is before the downslide after the year 2000.
Well, I think it was so in this movie, so the basic premise is John Travolta is Sean Archer, who is an FBI agent. Nicolas Cage is Castor Troy.
We got to talk about the Nicolas Cage mustache at the beginning of this film because there's a very weird... John Travolta is having a semi-erotic experience with this young child on a carousel at the beginning of the movie. He's like touching his face, and it's just very weird.
Yeah.
And then Nicolas Cage is like got a mustache and a sniper rifle, and he's about to shoot the son, but then he has to take a second to think about it and drink his milkshake or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he shoots him, and it kills the son and John Travolta, and that starts their arch nemesis.
Well, he was killing John Travolta. He was trying to kill John Travolta. He was trying to kill Archer, and then he killed Archer's son instead.
Yeah. But do you not think that was just a very weird...
Yeah, it's just these quirky type of things. And then...
That's what I said. This would not happen.
So then,
now.
like, years into the future, so years later, Archer has been tracking down, like, one of his personal vendetta against
He's, like,
Castor
obsessed.
Troy
His life is getting Castor Troy.
Killing his son. So he's going after him. And then they manage to, like, bust up what's going on. And he hears Troy say that there's a bomb.
We skipped... this is the beginning of... Really, this movie's kind of like Nicolas Cage is like just go crazy because he sets the bomb up in the convention center,
and then he's dressed like
a priest,
and then
there's like a choir singing there, so he starts headbanging, And
then he
gets,
grabs
like,
the one girl's butt.
Yeah, and then he's like screaming, and he does the crazy Nicolas Cage, and it's like
Because this movie, I think, was where he was a respected actor at this point. He had, been in awards consideration, won some awards, huge movies. And I think this is a movie where John Woo is kind of like, we want your character to be really unhinged so that it's then easier later to match that up. Because if you act broad and big, John Travolta has an easier time picking out the things that we can pick out as your characteristics when he is portraying you. And you can see that later when he tries to...
I will say that they really did do that pretty well because
I think that they also did I think it was two parts. I think it was Nicolas Cage being, set to 11 allowed John Travolta to more easily match some of these characteristics. And then when Nicolas Cage is playing Archer as Castor Troy,
which gets confusing when you say it.
So when Nicolas Cage is playing himself, or when Nicolas Cage is playing John Travolta playing him, then I think there's points where it's supposed to be believed like he's like, oh, I'm not in character, so he just acts really crazy and does weird faces. Yeah. So the way that he kind of portrays that he's kind of struggling to put on the facade is he just overacts. Yeah. So like there's weird dichotomy that kind of makes sense.
It works. It's, like I said, this is where like. This movie to me, because it's 21 years old, you can go back and watch it, and it's 2 hours and 18 minutes long, 1997 action movie. Yeah. It's still really fun because this is like good Travolta, which Travolta can be really good or he can just be really, really bad. And Nicolas Cage is the same way. But you get this, and it's like, I still think there's so much there that you can enjoy this. Yeah. Because I still enjoyed it. And like I said, again, like, you have the kind of cool, like, when Castor Troy... when Travolta as Castor Troy gets sent to the prison, they have the electric boots, and then you have like all that's kind of cool because it's like this is very much a high concept movie.
Well, then you have John Carroll Lynch as one of the guards. Yeah.
So he's kind of a sadistic individual, and like at one point he's like, Castor Troy's getting beat up by him. He's like, I'm gonna get you fired, and that's before John Travolta becomes evil. So
then you have Chris Bauer in it. So he was the guy that helped Castor Troy escape from the prison. Yeah. When he attacks the guards when they're about to electrocute Troy. And then he was also with Nicolas Cage in 8mm. So the movie that came out like a year or two later. So you have like this cast that's stacked with these and then like you said, Thomas Jane is in it. Yeah. So you have these different kind of character actors that show up throughout.
Yeah. And then you have like his sidekick that gets killed in the woman that comes to him that was like in The Fugitive and what's the movie? U.S. Marshals. I can't think of her name. She was in both of them. She was the partner that came up and talked to him about doing the project originally about the face swap. And then Castor Troy kills him by burning him. Yeah. Like, there's so many recognizable faces.
Well, then, like, Gina Gershon is Castor Troy's, like, former lover that had a child by him.
There's a lot of recognizable faces in it.
I guess so the premise, though, of just the idea that Castor Troy had a bomb plane that was going to blow up and kill a bunch of people. Yeah. He mentioned that, and then he got knocked out and went into a coma. So
by a airplane test engine being on, John Travolta kicks him into the jet area engine. I forgot what it's called, and it blows him and knocks him back into the coma, which he thinks he's dead.
The plan that they have to figure things out is that they're going to use a experimental face swap procedure where they would take the face off of Castor Troy and put it on Archer so that he would then be able to go. They would also give him like a chip that alters his voice. Mm-hmm. Then they would give him, change his body to look more like Nicolas Cage, which when you think about it, their body mass at that point, because, Nicolas Cage, and he looked kind of thin and gaunt, as opposed to John Travolta didn't.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage was in much better shape than...
There was almost no way to make all that work. But
it'd be more realistic to make Travolta skinny than Nicolas Cage fat.
But then the ironic part is, though, this isn't something with like a months-long recovery period. It's kind of immediate because they have like a very short time window. So then he goes, so he has to go under the guise of his worst enemy and the person that haunted him and killed his son. So he has to like see the face of the most hated person in his life when he looks in the mirror. He goes undercover. Somehow Castor Troy wakes up from his coma, is able to get his former associates to come and take...
Which is the guy with the face scar that's in so much crap. And
he's able to get his associates to take the doctor hostage that did the procedure and then to do the procedure to him where he looks like Archer. Then he kills everybody who had anything to do with the top secret project, so no one knows. And he decides he's going to live as Archer and just be like a badass.
Yeah.
And so that's your basic premise. And then it's because like he even goes to like his brother, Castor Troy's brother, when he's Archer Troy, and says, "Hey, it's actually me," because his brother somehow knows.
He
that
gave
there's
him like
something
some
wrong.
cute, because his brother.
He realizes that Castor Troy. Well, then also when I guess we'll just say to make it easier, when Nick Cage is in the prison, and he then knows what gets an idea of what the plan is. Then he kind of tells the brothers like, "Oh, you're pathetic," and all this stuff that's like this big giveaway. But then everybody that knows what the project's dead, so he's not getting out of prison. Yeah. And then Travolta comes and visits him and is like, "Hey, I'm going to go home and screw your wife and take over your life." Yeah. And then you have those elements, and then he convinces the brothers to tell him where the bomb is, and he diffuses it like in dramatic fashion and becomes like a hero and all this
Puts
stuff.
the president on hold when he calls him to talk to the wife, and he ends up having sex with the wife.
So talk about like in the modern like Me Too era. So the idea that two men would, not a body swap, it's a face swap. Like, would she not notice, like, oh, your penis is a different size, or it looks different?
Well, according to her diary, they hadn't had sex in like months or years
because of his single-minded obsession with catching.
So
Castor Troy.
she hasn't seen it in so long, she doesn't know what it looks like.
But yeah, like a little bit different under the lens of today's world. Some of those plot elements, but and then Castor Troy's old girlfriend tries to have sex with Nick Cage when he's there, and he's just like, no. Yeah. And then he sees that they have like a kid together and stuff. That reminds him of his
the weird
son.
hand face thing on the kid. And one thing that we were talking about before the podcast is this movie did so much better than Rob Zombie and The Devil's Rejects is. Like in The Devil's Rejects, they try to like make the
bad guys
mass murderers like sympathetic characters.
Yeah.
And to me, they failed.
Well, I think it's that all of them were so over the top that you were either in on their over the top performance and you kind of bought in, or you're like, oh, like, so Devil's Rejects, you're like, oh, Sheriff Weidell's the good guy, and I don't really care what he does these people because they're so abhorrent and so terrible that he could chop off their fingers and make them choke to death on it, and you'd be like, it sounds fair. Yeah. So in this movie, when you get to kind of see, Nicolas Cage when he's, the good guy version.
And like the guy that...
when he's with the criminal element... and you get to see a little bit more of them, and they're friendly to him, and they're doing these things. So he has this kind of this moral conscious thing of like, here's my sworn enemies or people that assisted my sworn enemy, and I'm now relying on them to help me. Yeah.
And had to kill people that, like, because like at one point in the movie, the FBI and all them become the bad guys. Like they break into he finds the bald
guy. Even though Archer, the John Travolta is evil, he is directing the FBI to do things who are good agents and good people, but then they're having to be, so it's like this weird dichotomy where you'd have to wonder after it was all said and done, like, would they really let Archer get his face back and will be welcomed back with open arms? Not because he did do a lot of criminal activity. Yeah. Even though it was undercover and stuff, there's no record of that going on. But then, so you have those elements that are interesting. And
well, does anybody even know about it? Because I think when they do the face swap at the end, it's still kind of like,
well, because so throughout the movie, once he escapes, he then tries to contact his wife, who just hangs up on him or doesn't want to listen to the phone call, and then he later sees her in person and gives like a sample of blood. It's like, look, test it. It's me. It's your husband.
Yeah, because they made a very specific reference to the fact that our blood types are different. The doctor at the Walsh Institute, he's like, your brother won't know that. So they do make a very specific nod to that. So later in the film, it makes sense why he would do that.
And he knew information that really no one else would know. Yeah. So he does that, and then she eventually believes him, and then I guess supposedly tells the other FBI agents, and then they believe it. So, whatever. It's a big budget movie where they swap dudes' faces. You can't get too caught up on the details.
I mean, the thing is, though, but the way they did it, it was interesting because this is why I think it works so much better with Cage and Travolta, because as much as I enjoy both Stallone and Schwarzenegger films, depending on which ones they are, I think that they sold this way better than they could have ever done.
Well, because you get people who at the time
were good actors.
At the time were good actors who were known for acting over, posturing and muscles and straight up action. I mean,
Sylvester Stallone can't act because he did in Rocky. Yeah. And he's doing it again now, in the Creed movies. And Schwarzenegger can't act because he's done it in, what was the one movie he did with Jamie Lee Curtis?
True Lies.
True Lies, you can't get stuff out of it.
Well, I think Schwarzenegger, when properly wielded, by a director who gets what his strengths are can do very good work. Because I think, Predator with McTiernan, he did great work. With James Cameron, he did good work. And Terminator 1 and 2 and True Lies. So I think that he's like properly utilized. Great. Mostly, though, he was just kind of shoved in there because of his star power and his muscles.
You look at Batman and Robin, and then,
Yeah, so
but he still was at a 10 for that entire film. He was just happy to be there.
Which just makes me sad because there was a time where if that movie hadn't tanked so hard... so Nicolas Cage was being looked at for Superman, but he was also being looked at to do a Batman movie as a Scarecrow, I think, in the 90s.
Which he would have been great as Scarecrow.
Yeah, so you have all these different things. But, Face Off, so you have the kind of Nicolas Cage being... good Nicolas Cage kind of getting immersed in the underworld and kind of identifying with some of these people.
Yeah.
And, you get the fact that he'd be a little bit unhinged because you're wearing the face of the person you hate most in the world.
Yeah.
Your sworn enemy has your face and can go home to your family and do stuff.
He also killed everybody, to your knowledge, that's able to do the surgery.
And anybody that could reverse it or knows about it has been killed. So you have like those types of elements. So you do have this weird dichotomy that would make him kind of go crazy. But then he doesn't really succumb to it, and he doesn't have sex with the other woman. He doesn't do all the stuff he could have done. So you have like stuff like that.
He does do cocaine, and he's like, take the face off.
Yeah,
and
he's like, we need to take his face off. And then he's like, no more drugs for this guy.
Yeah.
And some funny moments like that. But then basically it's him just trying to kill Archer to get his face and family back.
Which one thing I really love this movie, which again in this world would never happen, is there's a couple of scenes where like, especially when they're first going after Troy.
Yeah.
And they're in the airplane hangar, and like there's an FBI agent runs in, you can see the line on his back and the harness.
Yeah.
So when he gets shot with the shotgun, he flies back.
Yeah.
And it's like there's the boat chase at the end where they're fighting, and then there's certain scenes where you can tell that it is neither Travolta nor Cage.
Oh yeah, because a lot of those movies with stunt doubles, you can easily tell.
But like in the Marvel movies, that would never happen.
Well,
you're never going to be able to look at it and see that was even if
go back and watch Lethal Weapon when Riggs handcuffs himself to
Yeah,
the jumper and they jump off.
It's just a guy in a bad wig.
There's no connection between the handcuffs.
But that's something I think is a little bit of charm because at this point in time,
I would rather see that than CG.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but at this point in time, that was a huge movie. So the fact that they didn't even use CG to even take the line off the guy's back,
but I think
is a little bit kind of like charming in a way.
But I think too, part of it is, working on making short films or being involved with some of that behind the scenes element makes you look for things a lot more that normal people don't.
But this was like Arrested Development where, the boom mics in the scene.
Yeah.
This was like that where it's like, I wonder if they just shot the scene and it worked out so good. They're like, screw it.
But then, the movie also had like the double gun shooting scene.
Yeah.
A number of scenes where it had Travolta and Cage on opposite sides of the frame against each other.
Like one of the best scenes I think is in the church and they come in. It's kind of the final showdown.
Yeah.
And then Nick Cage comes in. He has the double gold guns. And the doves fly out, and it's like,
it's very John Woo.
That's very John Woo. But again, like that just adds to this movie.
Well, then too though, you have the element that's kind of funny too though is he gets his crime partners to help out, and like the former lover of Castor Troy and like the mother of the child and stuff. So he brings people into this, and he really doesn't care if they die because they're just kind of.
But he still does though, because like at the end,
so he uses them knowing they probably will die, but then gets upset when they do.
Because I think at first he's like the bald headed guy, like, screw this guy, but when he dies, it's like a very emotional part for him because. Like the guy did help him, and without him, he would have gotten killed by Archer or whatever. So it worked out, but it's like it's just funny that this movie, when you tell me this part of this movie, it's such a goofy movie.
Yeah,
and you go back and watch it, it's like this actually really worked. Like this is actually for the most part like probably one of the better, if not one of the best action movies of the '90s. I mean, it's right up there with The Rock.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies that has a very goofy charm to it because the idea. So The Rock has a more plausible idea.
Yeah.
That, some former military people still like a highly top secret weapon and threaten to use it unless they get paid with black ops slush fund that they, know about because it's top secret and they used to be involved with it. Yeah. That's a more believable plot.
And they go and get the guy that broke out.
The only guy that's broken out that they're aware of who knows how to get in and out of the prison. They utilize him. So that makes more sense. This is they take one guy's face off, put on another guy's face, and change their bodies enough that they look the same. It's something I think in today's world that you might see something like this, but it would be a little bit more science-y behind it. There'd be a little bit more talk.
Yeah, but I think too though, this movie to me, if they made it now, you wouldn't have Like I'm trying to
It'd
think
be a lower budget. It
but
wouldn't be.
who's two big actors that would even be involved in something like this? Like
You could do Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
and then it'd be like,
yeah, really. I mean, that you'd have to get something like them. Which Ryan Reynolds, I feel like would probably. This almost seems like a Deadpool
or you could do like Bradley, because I think for a while like Ryan Gosling, Bradley Cooper, and Ryan Reynolds auditioned against each other for roles or were considered for roles. So you could have some goofy stuff like that, or trying to think of like other people you could go with.
What's the guy from Captain America?
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, like Chris Evans and
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine, yeah, like something like that. Where that would kind of make sense. Like Chris Pine, I could see being in something like this.
So you have
But I just don't see it being, because if you inflate this movie, it's way more than $90 million to make it. Because that was the 1997 money. I would say it's probably a couple $100 million. And
yeah, it was a huge budgeted movie for the time, and
it was highly successful. I mean, it made good money for '97.
And it was before he went on to eventually do Mission Impossible. And then I think John Woo's charm kind of wore off because he just kind of did the same shtick.
Yeah.
And people still love his original Chinese films and his early American work. But then it's like, well, he kind of just got into being almost a parody of himself.
This movie almost feels like some Chinese, like Japanese kind of like, because they're always like.
It's John Woo gun fu.
Yeah. But I'm saying the plot of this movie is like, if I'd watch an anime and this happened in anime, like, oh, okay, this makes sense. You know, like it kind of feels like that a little bit.
Yeah, so it has that kind of that fantastical element to it. And I think John Woo, like, he wasn't the writer of the script. He's got attached to the project
but
eventually.
He was, I don't know if you could have got anybody better, because just imagine Michael Bay did this.
Well,
it would not have worked.
Like, there's some moments in the movie, there's like the slow-mo that wasn't like so when you shoot slow motion, the way you make it look smooth and nice is you shoot at a higher, because films are at 24 frames a second, you shoot at a higher frame rate than that. So then you can slow it down and there's more information in between the frames to give you smooth slow motion. If you just shoot 24 frames a second and slow it down, it looks choppy and bad. And in this movie, there was a bit of choppy, bad slow motion where they just slowed, like when John Travolta, Castor Troy goes to give the daughter the butterfly knife and he like walks up and like is opening it up. It's like this really bad kind of choppy slow motion. Yeah. It's like that's probably an insert shot they did later because they needed something to make that scene.
The funny thing about that scene is like, wow, because when he first sees a daughter, he's like interested.
He's like, the plot thickens.
But which is funny that he said, but then he gives her the knife and teaches her how to stab somebody, so it actually benefits her later when the boyfriend tries to rape.
Well,
no. The boyfriend, he gets involved, and then later on, she used the knife on him.
Yeah, so Danny Masterson, who has been accused of things in real life in recent years, was the overzealous boyfriend who was trying to get fresh with a girl. So you see the Castor Troy character when he's in the guise of Archer, goes outside, beats the shit out of the boyfriend, and then asks her, do you have protection? She's like condoms? He's like, no. And he gives her the knife and tells her, like, stab it in the thigh, twist, and then pull up. So she then later does that to him, of course, which is, a nice little bit of foreshadowing. But it does show him evolve a little bit. And maybe it's just that he's still a terrible person, but he still doesn't think that women should be abused by men for no reason. And
except for the fact that when he gets in the airplane at the beginning of the movie, he asks a woman where he sent her flowers. Let me rephrase that. Would you rather just suck my tongue? And then there's the really awkward scene where the woman sucks Nicolas Cage's tongue, and it's like, oh god.
Okay, so he is really gross.
Yeah, no, he is really gross. But that scene was like, if I give you the privilege of sucking my tongue or something, would you do it? And then she does it.
Just imagine being on set and shooting that.
And then he later shoots her in the back, throws her at the airplane, they run over, and it's like, oh god.
So yeah,
After he said he'd eat a peach for hours.
So
which my favorite part of the movie, this is kind of like you with Troll too. Every part's my favorite part, but is when the face swap first gets done, the first thing
they're having to do the voice.
He's like, say I can eat a peach, and he's like, I can eat a peach. And it's like, how do you pick that?
And it's like all this weird. You're sure like the ADR, like John Travolta sitting there having to like match exactly to his lips, and then they eventually morph it into Nicolas Cage's voice. So there's a lot of goofy elements like that. And there's
at least it was in depth. Like it wasn't just like they did the face swap. They went on like they gave
they built up to it, and then like I said, you had the moments where Nicolas Cage, Castor Troy is still a terrible person, but when he's in the guise of Archer, he at least tries to be a little bit better. Because he even says at one point, he's like, we're gonna go straight. We're gonna, I'm gonna become a hero and do this and that. So you have like these elements that are interesting. Like as a TV series, you can go a lot further with that. But as a movie as a whole, it is fun. And the concept, you have this high concept element to it, and then you have the, like I said, there's a lot of moments. Like there's like the moment where they're on where Cage and Travolta and like that shootout. are on both sides of the mirror.
Yeah.
So like they look in the reflection and see themselves,
And they shoot
but it's the
themselves.
person they're trying to kill, really. And you see them on both sides of it, like in the shot that's like a wide, like two person shot. So you have all these kind of elements that are like these cool visual nods to what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That would be more. It would be deeper if it's in a more deep movie, but it's kind of like glossy action. And then you have the end, like the boat scene,
Which is so great. Like,
the
I love boat scenes.
The boat wrecks and they fly 30 feet in the air and they're not hurt.
Yeah. Well, just you think about like the end fight scene. It starts in the church, or does it end in the church? I can't remember because I just watched.
It ends on the beach.
Kind of all
it ends on the beach because they start at the church and you have the shootout, and then like he promises the Gina Gershon's character that he'll take care of the son.
Yeah. Which the thing that blows my mind in this movie is that at the end of the movie, the only person in the world that can do the surgery is his wife. And it's the only person in the world that's capable of doing the surgery.
Yeah,
is his wife.
but then so you have the fight scene on the beach, where Cage is kind of won, and Travolta, he has like the harpoon gun he's going to shoot him through the chest with, and he grabs it and he's like, well, you're going to have to live with my face for the rest of your life, and he starts to cut his own face.
Yeah.
And then he's able to get the harpoon gun loose and it shoots him through the gut. Yeah. And I guess his face is still cut up, but not too bad. Because then they're able to implant it on him, and he goes home at the end, and he's normal again, and then he has Castor Troy's son that they're adopting.
Yeah.
So I guess the roundabout way is he killed the guy that killed his son after being obsessed with it, and then learned that maybe he shouldn't have been so obsessed with it, and then gets a new son by killing Castor Troy and taking his.
Yeah.
So kind of a weird roundabout morality there.
Yeah.
Because the kid will have a better life and not be in crime, but it's like this dude became so obsessed with the person that killed his kid and takes his kid.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird.
It's just, it really is weird. But I'm saying that to me, that's how, like, when you go back and you watch this movie, I think this has something, like, way more to offer than, like, movies like Armageddon or any Bruce Willis 90s
Well, it's
movie.
not going for sentimental fluff as much.
No, I mean, it is, but at least it's a little
So
bit
Michael Bay
deeper.
movies. So if you compare, like,
This is the Con Air.
if you compare this, no, that was like just Jerry Bruckheimer produced.
Oh, okay.
So Michael Bay did The Rock, and then he
Which
also
The Rock
did.
is great.
The Rock was one of my top favorite like action movies. And then Michael Bay also did like Pearl Harbor and Armageddon. So movies that were purposefully pulling at the heartstrings with kind of saccharine, sweet, not really earned moments.
Yeah.
As opposed to this one, that was all subtext that the characters cared about, but as an audience, nobody really was too invested in Sean Archer's family, really.
Yeah. But it's just funny that I think the thing that kind of surprised me the most about this movie is the length of it, because
It's over 2 hours?
It's over 2 hours, and it's like nowadays, like this movie is almost as long as Infinity War. Like it's 12 minutes difference or something. There's not a huge time difference, and it's like, so this is almost kind of an epic movie in the way that it's shot and it feels, because it's like it's really long.
Yeah.
It is a high concept. They do delve deep enough into it to make it somewhat believable.
Well, it's about as plausible as it's about as plausible as those movies get.
Yeah.
Like Demolition Man, which is a movie we need to cover at some point.
Yeah.
Because apparently at Comic-Con, they're going to have Taco Bells like the Demolition Man one.
Yeah.
Because in that movie, like every restaurant in the future is a Taco Bell.
Yeah.
So they're like these kind of 90s, like high concept sci-fi action movies. We don't really get those now. I mean, there's some that happen here and there, but they're not really on this kind of trashy B action movie level. It's, you have stuff like Blade Runner 2049 where it's more serious, or Inception where
But
it's
this
more
wasn't
serious.
a B level. This was A level. Because
But it's still a B movie because...
it's a B movie, but it didn't go out like
No,
a B
it's a
movie.
B movie with A level talent and money.
Yeah.
And now that's more shifted to the superhero films. You have these kind of B movies with A level talent. So people are making movies like Avengers and Ant-Man and the Wasp and stuff.
Which those are maybe even C movies.
So Netflix is probably like, I think Netflix has maybe like, even though I didn't like it, Bright is kind of the orcs are in the real world and they're a cop or whatever.
Yeah, but this is like way better than that.
They made that Duncan Jones movie that none of us have watched, Mute, that has Paul Rudd and stuff in it.
Yeah.
So it seems like some of the movies that are kind of like Face Off are more of the sandbox of streaming, or something like Westworld and HBO. It's more like series and streaming stuff. It's not big theatrical releases, because a movie like this made today would have a budget of $20 million or less.
Yeah.
And be targeted at a different audience.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, because like we've talked about this before, like the big action thriller, like which Mission Impossible is still kind of like that relic.
Mission Impossible is one of the holdovers.
Yeah, which
it's
is
a
like,
franchise film.
Yeah, it's a franchise, but that is more comparable to this than like,
Yeah,
you know, your Avengers.
Because Mission Impossible is real people.
Yeah.
And, you know, with some high tech stuff that doesn't exist. So it's real people with high technology that is science fiction, but in realistic scenarios or realistic-ish scenarios.
Which it's like one of the last movies to sell on Tom Cruise, because like Tom Cruise is from this era, so it's really like the last movie kind of like this.
I'm trying to think. So if you really dug Face Off and you want like a modern sci-fi movie that has a cool concept that's not a superhero movie,
Mission Impossible.
Well, I'm saying like beyond even like the franchise films, like Tom Cruise and Live, Die, Repeat or Edge of Tomorrow, whatever it's called. Yeah. That's a really good movie to go watch. I'm trying to think of other stuff that's kind of in this wheelhouse.
Atomic Blonde isn't really like that, but there's...
Well, because like John Wick is a movie that's like a straight action movie, but that has a budget of like $40 million or less, or like $20 million or something.
Yeah,
so
that's Atomic Blonde. It's really hard to find stuff that's like this. That's really,
on this scale. You don't see movies that are an original
that
concept.
Are sold by. Well, you know,
major...
actually, you know what? The Rock with Skyscraper and stuff is about the closest we have to that with his movie.
Yeah, but I think The Rock, like Dwayne Johnson, he's become such a solid box office draw that they can make genre movies based around him that kind of have like, oh, he's a helicopter pilot during a earthquake.
But that's how these movies are.
He's this, he's that. So I think that he's one of the few people that can make movies around.
Tom Cruise.
What you don't see as much anymore is kind of like an auteur director that's given a huge budget with A-list talent for an original idea that's an action movie. You don't see that as much. There's probably ones that people can think of and be like, oh, you're wrong. But like, there's just not as many of those around anymore.
I can't think of the last time that a Oscar winner and, you know, a very good actor at the time, because remember, like Travolta, he sucks now. Like I think that's hard to argue.
Well, okay.
Bad.
So I think that
Travolta's bad now.
He was good in the American Crime Story O.J. Simpson thing.
Yeah, I mean, Travolta, you can get good out of him, but generally, like the Gotti movie he made,
it seems like he says yes to a lot more things now.
Yeah,
without as much quality control, so he can be good when properly wielded.
Yeah,
but
like Bruce Willis.
But after Pulp Fiction, that kind of revitalized his career and brought him back.
Yeah.
So this was when, you know, the height of his kind of renaissance.
Yeah. Then what was it, Battlefield Earth or whatever it was that he was in?
Yeah, the L. Ron Hubbard movie.
Yeah. Now he's a Scientologist.
Well, the Scientology, whatever. But yeah, so like in the modern world, or the modern day cinema scene, there's not as many movies like this.
Yeah.
Which
is kind of sad.
Because if it had like a close to $100 million budget in the 90s, if you were to adjust that for inflation,
it'd almost be 180 or something.
It's like $200 million. So you don't really see all that many $200 million non-franchise, non-sequel movies, even with A-list talent and like on a tour director. You don't see that as much.
Yeah.
You see that more with TV, where they give, you know, like a season of TV to somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Face Off, it's on Netflix. So let's get into giving it our final thoughts and a score out of 10. So what do you give this out of 10?
Well, let me just say this. This is one of those movies that I've seen mainly because of our dad and just being a big movie like so many times. Like I've seen it as much as I've seen The Rock. And having watched The Rock in this recently, like those are two movies that I've went back from my past and I always remember being good.
Yeah.
And they're still like The Rock is, I don't know, it's so hard to compare. But like they're both up there. They're, I think in my opinion, probably two of the best just like straight action movies of all time.
Yeah.
They hold up, I think, really well as far as rewatchability, even considering, because this movie's over 2 hours.
Too, like, so something like Die Hard is on TV a lot. So even though Die Hard is something I may have enjoyed more, it's something I've seen so much.
I like this better than Die Hard.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think Die Hard has stuck in the popular consciousness more because it's got, like, the Christmas movie angle and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it just gets continually mentioned and talked about and parodied. Yeah. And Face Off was something that was really big when it came out and hasn't been addressed or as much of popular culture since then. So to me, seeing it for the first time in 10 years is kind of fresh watching it.
And again, like, I remember it being good when I was young because we watched the hell out of it. And then you go back and watch it and it's like, wow, there are moments where like Nicolas Cage and Travolta are dialed up to 13. You know, like it works. If they didn't do it, the movie wouldn't work. So, and again, like this is definitely one like my. If I did if I went by the decades, like in the 90s, and as far as action movies go, this is solidly in the top 5, probably top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta go a 10 out of 10 on it.
Oh wow!
Because it's not a perfect movie, but if you look at it, it's like for a movie that is 21 years old, that is over 2 hours long,
Yeah.
that has Nicolas Cage and John Travolta in it, being each other, like there's so much in it that still works.
Yeah.
And there's no way that this movie get made today and be good at all.
And there's the cool visuals like the magnetic boots in the prison and all this stuff.
And there's no CGI. I mean, there was, but it wasn't like, you know,
it was touching things up.
But
it
when
wasn't...
they're blowing somebody up, they're actually throwing either a ragdoll or a real person.
Well, yeah, because CG did exist in that era, because we did Event Horizon that came out around the same time. It had some really bad CG.
But like this movie doesn't get bogged down by bad CGI, because even when they did use it, like when they took the faces, those were wax molds.
But like,
or they were like prosthetics, so it still holds up. You know, there's no part where you're going to watch and you're like, oh, that CGI is really bad.
Like, so to, you know, like all these reviews, they're all like mostly meaningless. Giving some, you know, you could say like, I'm trying to think of movies reviewed in the past. You could review a movie that, you know, if you give it this a 10 out of 10, it's like, well, this is not better than, I'm just trying to think an example of something, you know, like this is not better filmmaking than The Exorcist or something.
It's not, but like for its genre, it is.
But it's just like all the scores are relative and things like that. So like I'm not giving it a 10. I think like an 8 out of 10 because it's just so fun and goofy and kind of the personification of an era that to me holds special nostalgic value, because I remember that era of movies like that and they don't get made as much anymore, don't have that feeling. So then it's just me, one of those movies you watch, you're like, oh man, it reminds me of my childhood.
Like as much as I love the superhero genre, like the sad part of it is like it essentially killed these movies.
Well, yeah.
So you're not going to get like, you'll get stuff like Wind River and this are completely different, but you'll get stuff like a Wind River, but that movie is cheaply made, small budget.
Well, not cheaply, it's just lower, you know.
It don't have a budget of $90 million.
No. So I mean, like I even said, like John Wick, the first John Wick was a straight action movie. With Keanu Reeves, you know, that would fit in perfectly in the era that Face Off came, because even Keanu Reeves, that movie back then would have been fine.
He was big, yeah.
But those movies nowadays have a budget, you know, on the high end, like 20 to 40 million.
Yeah.
So a lot of those movies are, you know, still decent budgets, just nowhere near the grandness of Face Off. Like they wouldn't give John Wick 2 or what, or no, the original John Wick, because Face Off was like a non-sequel, non-franchise. So the first John Wick, if it had had like a $200 million budget, that would have been kind of like what you're doing with Face Off. So you're just probably not going to see that happen again. I think the closest thing you'll see to that is kind of an auteur get a TV series greenlit with like a 10 episode season where it's like $100 million over the 10 episodes. Like maybe you'll see that, but I don't think you'll see a big movie that's the big sci-fi, you know, high concept movie with the $200 million budget with, you know, even with stars in it that's released today. I think you're just going to see more franchise in films, and then the movies like Face Off are being made for $20 to $40 million with mid-tier talent. And
to be fair, though, you could probably go back and make this. I don't know. There are so many practical stunts in this movie. I don't think you can make it cheaply because they have boats and airplanes and just so, you know, they have a helicopter attack an airplane at one point in the movie, which is all practical. It wasn't CGI. And then you have the boat stuff. So it's like, I just don't think you can make this movie for $40 million just because all that stuff's got to be crazy.
It would have to be toned way down.
Yeah. But there is a part where at one point you're using a helicopter to disable an airplane before it takes off. And it was all like them actually doing it. So
yeah, so that'll wrap up our discussion of Face Off. You know, one of those things where even if this movie itself isn't your cup of tea, you have to miss that era.
Yeah.
Of all the practical effects heavy action films that let people kind of push buttons and do things like they were their own stylistic flourishes. Because it feels like in today's world, they would have cut out the dove scenes.
You know, I kind of feel like whoever made Max Payne watch this movie is like, that's the game I want to make. Because there's so much that Max Payne pulls from this.
Yeah.
With the jacket flying, the double guns, the shooting on the side.
Well, yeah, well, and that's also like the Matrix and all that stuff. So
this is better than Matrix.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up our discussion of Face Off. If you're listening via iTunes, you can do us a huge favor, leave a review that helps other people find the podcast. You can find all the work we're doing at housebyvideostore.com. You can find links there to all of our social media accounts, to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and all that good stuff. So make sure to follow us on Facebook because we post updates there. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, which is HBTVS_official, because we do post stories from time to time. And so something I've been wondering, and if you are listening to this and give us some feedback, does anybody actually watch Instagram TV within the Instagram app or the standalone app? Does anybody watch that? Because I've been thinking about some of the short films we have, the way we shot them. There's enough coverage that I could try to do some cool things with like split screen, because it's vertical video, and essentially it's a 16:9 window, rotated 90 degrees. So essentially in that window, you can fit 3 panels of normal 16:9 widescreen footage. You just have to like crop it down some or resize it down. So you can fit 3 panels, or you can have kind of 2 panels of kind of cropped in footage. So I was thinking of like, would it be worth my time? Does anybody even use Instagram TV enough out of our audience that'd be worth recutting some of the short films to take advantage of that size and platform? I don't know. So if anybody does actually watch it, because I know like our audience demographics from like YouTube and stuff probably don't line up with Instagram TV. I'm just wondering if anybody uses it enough that'd be worth even trying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you
did we drop our email too?
Oh, you can send an email to podcast@houseofvstore.com.
Maybe it's something we don't talk about enough, but if there's ever anything that you have a comment on or something, if you send us an email, we will read it and discuss it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So please, if you're interested in do it. I mean, because we would love to respond to it.
Because we get a lot of great comments on YouTube, and we do see comments on Facebook and other places.
But feel free, if you hear anything you agree or disagree with, like, send us an email and we'll respond to it. Unless you're just like, you suck, you're an idiot. Like, we might not respond to that because that's not really a comment.
I mean, we'll read it too.
We'll read it. But it's just saying, like, even if you disagree with something, send it. If you think I'm an idiot because I think Face Off is one of the best movies of all time, yeah, sure, send me
like,
something.
I mean, we've gotten comments on like when we did that Thanksgiving dinner and the style.
Oh
of
yeah, well, the joke's on them because we got a bunch of views out of that.
Because I got a bunch of views and it got a lot of people seeing, but a lot of people had comments like, "These guys need to get educated," and we're like, "Well, get educated on what?"
Man.
Like, please tell us what to be educated on.
Yeah, please tell us. We were interested, Yeah.
As long as you're not like doxing us and pointing out personal information, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
but
like your face is ugly. It's like, well, no.
Yeah, but the next podcast, I think, unless plans change, will probably be I Know What You Did Last Summer,
which is Scooby-Doo Part 1.
which is available to watch on Vudu for free or other places. It does have ads though.
Yeah.
But I think
pretty much Scooby-Doo Part 1.
kind of
half the
because you
cast.
got Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah. No James Gunn.
And then Matthew Lillard was in Scream, which is like the kind of the sister movie. So that's what the plan is to cover in the next podcast, unless anything changes. But if you want to find us specifically on the internet, the best place to follow me is on Instagram and just @TheWilliamCaps. It's not being talking about myself in the third person and being vain. It's just that was the only thing with my name that was available.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram @MetaWorldDerek.
And that'll bring this episode of the House of VSO podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.
House by the